lot of people ask me if I have any regrets about leaving Dream Theater. I would say my only regret is that it took so long to come back together. I came back to Dream Theater and we ride off into the sunset together. This is the way it was supposed to have been.
Rock, metal, prog, and everything in between. Welcome to this episode of Talkin' Rock with Meltdown. Don't forget to follow the audio-only Talkin' Rock podcast on all podcast platforms. And now, it's time for today's conversation. Here's Meltdown.
Hey, Mike, good to see you, man.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm doing great. I love that Beatles poster you got right there. I know you're a big Beatles fan. You've probably talked about this before, but what is like your Beatles album?
There's no single one. It changes every day. I mean, one day it could be Revolver, one day it's the White Album, one day it's Pepper. It changes every day for 58 years now. You know, literally from day one, I was a Beatles fanatic from day one, and they're still my goats of all time. So
Now,
yeah.
now I remember, so we're pretty close in age. I remember when John Lennon was killed, I discovered my dad's Beatle albums. And ironically enough, Mark David Chapman's holed up in my hometown outside of Buffalo, New York, in this little
Wow.
prison. Yeah, and a lot of my friends work there. But how did you discover the Beatles?
I'm not kidding when I say day one. Like literally, I was born April 20th, 1967. That was the day that they completed Sergeant Pepper, and then it came out 6 weeks later. And I was listening to it in real time from that point on. My dad was a huge, huge rock music fan. He was even a rock DJ on a California station a few years later. And I was surrounded with it. So I remember when the White Album came out. I remember when Abbey Road came out. I remember spinning all my little records with green apples on them and stuff. And so I was a fan in real time. And the first concert I ever saw was George Harrison on his short-lived solo tour in 1974. And then I saw Paul McCartney on the Wings Over America tour in '76, a few years later. So yeah, when John was tragically killed in 1980, I was already there with them that whole ride up until then. So yeah.
Yeah, you were already invested. Yeah. The first time I ever saw a Beatle live was in 2009. I think I was at the Grammys and Paul McCartney was there. And I actually texted one of my friends. I said, I am in a building with the Beatle right now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I've been fortunate enough to have met both living Beatles, both Ringo and Paul. I have great, great stories in about meeting both of those guys, both amazing experiences. But I don't want to take up our interview talking about that. But yeah, yeah, they're my goats.
Yeah. So wait a second. You brought it up real fast. So when you meet Ringo, do you tell him what a huge fan and what an influence he was?
Of course. Well, I was introduced to him. I met him back in the late '90s, and I had just like that week or whatever won like some Modern Drummer Award or whatever. So the guy introducing me to Ringo was like, "Oh, this is Mike Portnoy. He just won Drummer of the Year, whatever." And Ringo said, "I thought I was Drummer of the Year," and I was like, "No, you're Drummer of the Century, you're Drummer of the Millennium."
No, that's so cool, man. Yeah, you've had a chance to meet a lot of your heroes. I was just reading before we got on about how you became friends with Neil Peart. Of course, I never had a chance to meet him. I'm probably like a lot of people, but I did read Ghost Rider. I thought that was really good.
Amazing.
And I saw that you talked about how he would send you these emails. I can just imagine what these emails, I mean, just the way he wrote and the meticulousness about just his aura.
Yeah, he was like that. Like if you've read any of his books, like Ghost Rider, or his lyrics for that matter, he was quite a writer, and that translated as well to his emails. These emails I'd get from him would be pages long and so eloquently written, and every word so meticulously picked and placed. He was just yeah, he was like that. But yeah, I would get these emails from him, and what a treasure. I saved them all, of course, and what a treasure to have. Every once in a while I'll pull them up and go back and reminisce. But yeah, what an honor for me to have become friends with him, those last 15 years of his life or so. He was such a gracious person, and if he let you into his inner circle, which he was very protective over, that really was like the ultimate honor, and for me it was.
Yeah, why do you think it was that he was so private? I mean, do you think he didn't? I got the impression like he didn't like people like fawning over him. Like he was just so good, and everybody had to say how good he was, and maybe early on that kind of wore on him. Do you think?
A lot of it was his uh he was just so humble. He was a really, really humble person. Everybody on earth telling him he's the greatest drummer of all time, which he probably was. But, he never believed it. He always wanted to be better. He always strived to be better. He famously took lessons with Freddie Gruber, late in his career. He was just a very gracious, humble person, and I guess protective over his private time. As the longer I'm in this business, I get it. I'm 58 now. I've been in the business for, Dream Theater's been together 40 years, but I've been touring pretty steadily for well over 30 years. And I get that sometimes when you're on the road, your private time is real sacred and real important. And I love his line in the song Limelight. I can't pretend a stranger is a long-awaited friend. It's a brilliant, brilliant lyric, and I could totally relate that. The longer I'm doing this, the older I'm getting, the more guarded and protective I am over my private time. I could totally relate to that sentiment.
Yeah. Did you ever go see Lakeside Park in St. Catharines where
I
he's
haven't. No, no.
Yeah, I got to stop by there one day. I drive through there sometimes. But well, let's get back to Dream Theater here, September 21st at the Fox Theater. I don't know. Have you ever played the Fox? That's like Joe Bonamassa told me it's one of the nicest theaters he's ever played in. It's beautiful.
Yeah, I haven't. I'm not sure if Dream Theater has without me, but I personally have never played there, and I've seen pictures of it, and I know its history. So yeah, I'm really, really looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to that show for two reasons. First of all, is to play that legendary theater, but second of all, we didn't hit Detroit on the first leg of the 40th anniversary tour, and this is kind of a big reunion for this lineup. This lineup hasn't played well over 15 years. So, each and every stop on that first U.S. tour, whether it be Chicago or Dallas or L.A. or Phoenix, everywhere we went, it was a lot of people's first time seeing this lineup together in 15 years, or in some cases of younger people seeing this lineup together for the first time ever. So we haven't had that experience yet back in Detroit. So this is one of the main markets that we didn't get to hit the first time around, and I'm really glad we are this time.
Yeah, it's interesting that you bring it up because there's a whole generation of kids that'll never get to see the original Pantera, for example.
Right.
It's stuff like that. So at least the prog rock fans and rock fans can come out and see you guys. Like you said, the original lineup getting ready and getting back together. I'm one of the, I don't know how many guys you talked to. I know you talked to Eddie and stuff, but yeah, I played Pull Me Under when it was brand new on the radio. That's how old I am.
Yeah, well, it made a huge difference. I mean, the way that song caught on at radio back in '92 when it came out changed our lives. We were, a struggling young band from Long Island just trying to find our audience. And when radio got behind Pull Me Under all those years ago, it opened up the doors and began this ride that we've been on ever since.
Yeah. Now you mentioned that obviously Ringo Starr was an early influence on you, but obviously you don't play like Ringo Starr. You're more.
I can though. I just don't in Dream Theater.
Yeah, I got you. But when does the gears kind of shift in your head? It's like, man, this Neil Peart guy, I got or stuff like that. When does that change for you?
Well, I have so many heroes in terms of drummers that range from guys like Ringo or Charlie Watts that you wouldn't necessarily hear in my playing to guys like Neil Peart and Bill Bruford and Terry Bozzio that are a little more obvious, but I love them all equally. I also love thrash metal drummers and jazz fusion drummers. But in answer to your question, it depends on what music I'm playing, where the influences come out. With Dream Theater's music is very technical and progressive, so my progressive and technical influences are going to come out. There's not necessarily a place for Ringo's style drumming in a lot of these crazy 10-minute Dream Theater epics. But through the years, especially in my downtime outside of the band, when I wasn't with the band, I did all these other bands and projects that did tap into all these other influences. I had a band like the Winery Dogs that was tapping into like a power trio, classic rock sound. I was able to get into my John Bonham and Mitch Mitchell and Ginger Baker influences with a band like that. Then I have a band like Metal Allegiance, which taps into all my thrash metal influences, so I could do my Dave Lombardo and Mickey D and Vinnie Paul with that. And there's a lot of things I've had that have had places for the Beatles and the Ringo influence, like Transatlantic or Flying Colors, are two more prog bands that I've done that have a heavy Beatles influence, or I even did a Beatles tribute band with Paul Gilbert many years ago. So I was able to full on do Ringo mode for something like that. So I could pick and choose my influences and where they show up depending on the musical environment that I'm with.
Yeah, you just mentioned like tons of bands. I saw you guys play with Winery Dogs here last time. You've been with Billy Sheehan in a couple different projects, obviously Sons of Apollo and whatnot. What's it like to play with a guy like Billy?
Billy has always been my favorite bass player on earth, or surely one of them. I was a fan of his, decades before he and I ever played together. I was going to see Tallis in the Long Island clubs back in the early 80s. And I was a huge fan of him in particular, just from that. And then when he joined the David Lee Roth band in 85 or 6, whatever that was, I mean, that first band with Billy and Steve Vai was a huge, huge influence for us in Dream Theater, just the musicianship. So yeah, I've been a fan of Billy's before I was ever a bandmate of his. And then once I started branching out doing different things, of course, he was the guy I wanted to work with. So we've worked together on so many things. The first thing we did was a Rush tribute album in the mid 90s. And then from there, I called on him to be in my Who tribute band that I did with Paul Gilbert and Gary Sharon. So the four of us did a Who tribute, and Billy just killed that. And then once I left Dream Theater and had these opportunities to create my own things, I called him for so many of them. We did a instrumental fusion thing with Tony McAlpine and Derek Sherinian. And then we formed the Winery Dogs with Richie Cosson. And then we formed Sons of Apollo with Derek Sherinian and Bumblefoot and Jeff Scott Soto. So Billy and I, especially in my years out of Dream Theater, we have done so many things together, and it's just down to, I respect him so much as a bass player and connect with him musically. He and I as a rhythm section are just like locked and loaded and ready to rock.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I'm not in a band, but I play sports, and it's got to be like playing with the same winger or something like that, on hockey or whatever. It's cool that you bring up Tallis because, like I said, I grew up in Buffalo. My demo tapes to get on the radio, I recorded with Dave Constantino from Tallis, like
Oh
in
yeah.
'88 or something like that.
Well, the very first Dream Theater shows back in 85 when we first started playing, or 86, we were still called Majesty. And those first couple shows, we were covering the Farandole by Tallis.
Hmm.
And yeah, so it's yeah, we were big fans of him back then when we first put the band together.
Yeah, it's funny because I've always kind of argued the fact that I think that David Lee Roth band with Billy Sheehan and Steve Vai and Greg Bisnett might have been the best band of the '80s.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it was like my dream band at the time for sure.
Yeah, that was a great record that they came out with. But like you said, you're coming back here with Dream Theater. So it's been a while now. You've played a bunch of shows. I mean, obvious question. How's it feeling for you back behind the kit?
It's been incredible. I mean, even though this is our first time coming through Detroit since I've been back in the band, it's been coming up on 2 years now for us. So the reunions kind of it's been worked in. We spent the first year making our new album Parasomnia, and then we spent the second year starting this past October. We've been on the road since then, and there's no letting up anytime soon. So we've already played almost 100 shows at this point all around the world. And like I mentioned already, everywhere we play for the first time, there's just such an energy and excitement and emotion in the audience, people getting to see this lineup together again. So each and every place we go, it's just been overwhelming. The numbers have been great. It's been the biggest tour that Dream Theater's ever done. So I really can't say enough of how exciting it's been. And there's still a lot of gas left in the tank. We have this whole US tour, which is hitting a lot of markets we didn't get to hit the first time around. So we get to share that first experience with so many people. And then we do Australia and Asia after the new year, next January, February, and March. Then we have another European tour next spring. So yeah, it's when all's said and done, it's going to be about a year and a half tour cycle, just getting around to everybody. And it's just been bigger and better than ever.
I know I've heard you talking about this in the past, where you're really a hands-on guy, and you like to you like to keep your control, so to speak. So how much control do you have now going back into the band? Is it like before, or is there some other things kind of that other guys are doing now?
I wouldn't say it's like before. When I left the band in 2010, I was a control freak and oversaw every aspect, every text, every email, every single aspect of the band, whether it be the merchandise, the fan clubs, the set list, blah blah blah. I was very a control freak, very much so. And it's not like that now. The years that I was gone, the band kind of redesigned their internal structure and how they work. John Petrucci ended up taking on a lot of responsibilities. He solely produces the albums now, whereas we used to do them together back then. And there was a lot of things, a lot of restructuring they had to do while I was gone. So now coming back to that after 13 years away, I have to be very respectful over what they had built all the years without me. And I'm not going to come in here and just assume that it's going to be exactly how it was when I left, because it's not going to be. And John and I had a conversation even before we solidified me coming back. We just laid out the conversation like, he was like, "Hey, are you going to be okay not doing this? Are you going to be okay sharing this?" And we had to kind of lay out all of those dynamics on how we would function internally. And it's okay. I'm actually happier now this way. I think it's a better band dynamic. It's a more true balance now than it was. So it's kind of the best of both worlds. And there are a lot of areas that were given back to me, like writing the set lists, and with that comes programming the house music at the show and the intermission and all the kind of stuff that goes into the way the show is run, the concert presentation. So luckily, that has always been my biggest passion. So that's one area that was kind of thrown back to me. And then sequencing the album order, that was always another big one for me. So yeah, we talked about the ones that were important to share and the ones that were important to delegate and find a happy balance.
Yeah, like I said, I've been in this business for a while, and one of my things I always said was, if you want it done, you just got to do it yourself. That's kind of how I am too.
That was my old mentality because the first 15 years of the band, we went through everything as a quote unquote democracy. But all that meant was we would just fight and bicker until I would beat everybody down. So there was a point about 15 years in, about 1999, 2000, when we made the Scenes from Memory album, we decided we're going to do away with this fake democracy. And myself and John were going to run the ship. We were going to co-produce the albums. We were going to make the business decisions together. And, so once we kind of got into that way of running the show, it went a lot smoother. And there was a lot of things that I had freedom to just make decisions on my own. I didn't have to go back to the band to discuss and bicker and argue. And it did run much better that way. But then I also see how that could cause a little resentments too when one guy is making a lot of decisions without the discussion or inclusion of other band members. So I think the way we do it now is, like I said, it's the best of both worlds, and it's a very smooth way of running. And we're much older. We're all in our late 50s and 60s. We're a lot more mature. We don't want to fight and bicker over, what is going to be the third song on the B side of the album. A lot of people realize you pick and choose your fights and you pick and choose your battles, and not everything is worth fighting over. And it's a much more calmer headspace, more serene way of doing things at this point in our career.
Now, you like you just mentioned, you were out of the band for 13 or 14 years, and you come back into the band. Do you ever think that there are some bands out there that I'm not going to talk about that they should just get back together just for the fans or just for whatever? Maybe they've grown up. Maybe there's things you learned that you could pass along to them. I mean, from being away from Dream Theater for so long.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, I recommend this to anybody that's on the fence about reuniting with their band, because it's the best thing we ever did. And a lot of people ask me if I have any regrets about leaving Dream Theater. I would say my only regret is that it took so long to come back together. I wish it had come back together sooner. So you see, like Roger Waters bickering with David Gilmour, or Skid Row bickering with Sebastian Bach, and all I could say is, guys, you're older and wiser. Do it for the fans, if anything else. I'm so glad that I came back to Dream Theater and we ride off into the sunset together. This is the way it was supposed to have been. I couldn't have written it any better. And it would have been one of the biggest regrets of my life if we hadn't reunited. And I look at like bands like Sebastian and Skid Row or whatever. There's probably a big list that we can name. And you know what? Time does heal all wounds. And I would recommend this to anybody. It's better to be riding off into the sunset together and rekindling a friendship and a love that certainly had to have been there at one point for any of these bands, Roger Waters and Pink Floyd. It's there somewhere deep down, and it's better to ride off into the sunset together than to be apart and having those deep-seated resentments. Life is just too short for that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and it's like I think you took some of the bands right out of the top of my head.
Yeah.
But that 13 or 14 years, was this like a chance for you to get out and just like I don't know, for lack of a better term, just just do your own thing, do things maybe you couldn't do when you're in Dream Theater and kind of get that out of your system?
The years that I was away.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, I always loved the Dream Theater guys. And even when I left the band 25 years in back in 2010, it it wasn't any fight or anything that broke us up. It broke my heart having to leave the band. I just wanted to try some other things in my life. I was at that point touring with Avenged Sevenfold, and I had done a few other things that I got a taste of what else is out there other than this Dream Theater world. And I wanted to be able to spread my wings a little and do some of those things. We already mentioned the Winery Dogs and Metal Allegiance and my bands with Neil Morse like Flying Colors and Transatlantic. All of those were things that I loved doing, and that maybe those musical styles didn't have a place in Dream Theater's world. So I wanted to expand myself a little bit and work with some other musicians and tap into some different musical styles. So once I left the band, I just went nuts. I just formed like, 8 or 9 different bands, and I did something like 40 or 50 studio albums over those 13 years, something crazy like that, just touring from band to band to band, tour to tour to tour. And I don't regret a minute of it because it was really some of the greatest musical experiences I've ever had. And I wouldn't have had them if I didn't step away from that time from Dream Theater. So really, everything happens for a reason. And, as much as I missed Dream Theater and missed the guys and missed the fans, I have no regrets about those years away because I really achieved some incredible musical experiences.
Now you mentioned Metal Allegiance. Dave Ellefson told me, he said ask him about the show on the Motorhead cruise, the first one. Was that
Well, that's where we started. We originally, myself, David Ellefson, Charlie Benante, and Frank Bello from Anthrax, the four of us, along with Mark Mengy, who was a corporate guy at the time, we were doing these kind of big clinic things called Metal Masters, and it grew to the point we had Kerry King from Slayer, we had Phil Anselmo from Pantera, we had all these guys joining us as it developed, and then finally we found ourselves on the motorboat, and that's when Alex Skolnick from Testament joined us. And at that point, we had this idea of evolving it into a thing called Metal Allegiance. And at that point, the idea was to get together and write some original music. And from there, we made 2 albums of all original music. The core band being myself, David Ellefson, Alex Skolnick, and Mark Mengy. And from there, we had everybody joining us: Mark Asagata from Death Angel, Phil Demmel from Machine Head. Literally, this who's who of the thrash metal world ended up getting involved with Metal Allegiance. Not only the 2 studio albums, but every year we'll do 1 or 2 shows. We do an annual show that coincides with the NAMM show out in the West Coast, usually every January. And then usually we'll squeeze in an East Coast show later in the year if we can. But yeah, it's been this ongoing kind of community of metal musicians that have done this. And everybody from every thrash metal band I could think of, from Metallica to Slayer to Anthrax to Mastodon, they've all been included in some, extent or another. And it's been one of the most fun things for me to have this thrash metal outlet because, I'm kind of like a kid playing in their playground. Honestly, I'm like the prog guy getting to play with all my thrash friends.
Yeah, I'm sure they love that. I know David Ellefson does. Hey, I see your Ozzy shirt on there. I don't know if I've ever that seems like kind of an unusual shirt. I don't know if I've ever seen that one
On the
before.
Blizzard of Oz tour,
Oh wow, that's an old one. Wow.
81, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm a huge Ozzy fan. I know you've talked about that. Did you watch that final show?
Yeah, well, I was on tour in Europe when it happened, so I couldn't watch it in real time. I didn't have 10 hours to just sit in front of it wasn't like a day off, so I had to kind of grab the live stream and watch it in chunks. But over the course of about a week or so, I banged through the whole concert, and it was phenomenal. What a glorious, I mean, and now it's even more significant with Ozzy's passing, but even if Ozzy hadn't passed, it was such an incredible tribute. And I've said this elsewhere, but you see these amazing tribute concerts like the Freddie Mercury tribute concert or the Taylor Hawkins tribute concert. And in those cases, it was always after the fact, and those artists didn't get to feel the love. In this case, it was so beautiful because Ozzy was there and was alive to not only experience it but to play it as well. And for him to have felt that love, and really for everybody to be able to have that final day with him, to say goodbye and to say thank you, it could not have been any more beautifully written. I mean, to have lost him 2 weeks later is just absolutely surreal. But for him to have, not only for him, but for all of us to have that final goodbye, that farewell kind of celebration was just so beautiful.
And you probably met him a bunch of times, right?
I only met Ozzy once, to be honest. When I was touring with Avenged, we did a show together, and I met him. We were on a car and a train in Japan that was blocked off just for the two of our bands. So I have a picture with him on the bullet train in Japan, which is so. We're better to have a photo with Ozzy than on a crazy train, you know? But yeah, I only met him once, but everybody else that played the concert, everybody from Anthrax to Slayer to Mastodon. I mean, I'm friends with all the guys, all the musicians that took part in it. I was so jealous to not be there because I was like the only one out of all those groups of the metal bands and stuff that wasn't there celebrating and performing. I was on tour with Dream Theater elsewhere and couldn't make it. But what an amazing show! What an amazing send off and a perfect farewell celebration.
Yeah, that was like the rock event of the century for
Oh,
sure.
absolutely.
Hey,
Yep.
last thing here for you, we'll let you go. I know that you're big into movies and films and stuff, and you mentioned George Harrison. Have you seen the new movie Weapons?
I heard about it. No spoilers because it's on my must-see film list.
Okay.
And I hear that there's a George Harrison song that
Yeah.
appears. I don't even know which one because I prefer to just soak it in and feel it
All right,
that
I
way.
won't tell you.
Yeah, but I'm a huge movie fan, and I'm dying to see that. And I love when obscure rock songs are put into a movie. Like there's a movie called Mandy, which was made by Panos Cosmatos, this amazing Greek director. It opens with King Crimson's "Starless,"
Mm.
and it was a goosebumps. Or there was a film, Vincent Gallo's Buffalo '66, that came out many
Oh
years
yeah.
ago that utilized Yes's "Heart of the Sunrise" in it. So yeah, I love when obscure rock songs are utilized in a film. It's a great thing. So I'm looking forward to seeing it.
Yeah, it was funny because I put it on my turntable, the record, and I heard that song, and it kind of flashed back to the movie right away. But what are some of the other movies that you've seen lately that you've liked? Is there any that are out right now? Any newer ones?
I just watched Eddington, which was Ari Aster's latest film. Ari Aster's one of my favorite modern directors. He did Hereditary and
Okay.
Midsummer,
Mm.
and this is his latest one, and it's brilliant. It's a masterpiece. Modern day country, like modern day Western, kind of like the Coen brothers, No Country for Old Men, kind of in that feel. But yeah, Ari Aster is amazing. He's one of my favorite directors out there. Him and Paul Thomas Anderson. There's a lot of great guys these days. The whole A24 studio, I mean,
Yeah.
everything they put out, I'll go see anything they put out, regardless of who made it or who's in it. I just know that it's a stamp of quality if they're putting it out.
Yeah, I'm a horror guy, so I just saw like Together was pretty wild.
Yeah, I want to see that too.
Yeah, Weapons was great. I thought Weapons was really good.
A lot
But
of great horror films just came out, but yeah,
yeah, and
I just saw Dead. What is it? Talk. Wait, not the company. The guy, the directors that. Oh, they did. What is it? Talk to me. Talk to her. Br- uh, Bring her back alive. What's the movie I just saw? I'm spacing out here.
I think I know what you're talking about. But
You
yeah, Neon and all these companies are putting out all this.
bring her back. Bring her back.
Bring her
That's another
back.
great one. Would reminded me of Hereditary a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so funny because I see so many of them. Sometimes I forget which ones I've watched. Like that movie. Did you see In a Violent Nature?
Yeah, and
I
they're
thought that
making a
was
second one
wild.
actually.
Uh,
They're making a sequel.
I thought it was a little bit slow, but I thought it was pretty
I
pretty.
don't I don't mind slow. I love slow. I can handle it. I'm a David Lynch fanatic.
Yeah. That was pretty good off the top of my head. I'm trying to think of the other ones I've seen lately. But yeah, the Together was
Strange Darling. There's a film called
great.
Strange
Yeah.
Darling.
That was see that film was okay.
Tarantino-esque.
All right. Yeah, you got into it now, so now I gotta get into it. So that film was told in a unique way, and so is Weapons. I'm just
Oh,
gonna
great. I love that. I love when it's non-linear. That was very, very Quentin Tarantino, and I love when films are told that way.
Yeah, well, we could talk movies all day long, but we'll say September 21st at the Fox with Mike and Dream Theater. Thank you so much for your time.
My pleasure, man. Thank you. See you then.